Bring in Mark Carpenter, our 49ers correspondent. Mark, finish my sentence. If defense wins championships, then the 49ers?
Then the 49ers are in line to win a championship because they have the best defense left right now in football. What we saw Saturday against the Vikings in the divisional round was just incredible. We saw a San Francisco defense that reminded us of just how dominant they can be. We saw a defense that looked like how they were in the first 8 games of the year and before they started that second half of the season that was so brutal for them, completely shutting down anything and everything the Vikings wanted to do, all right? The big talk going into that matchup was, well, you have to shut down Dalvin Cook. You can't let Kirk Cousins get into play action. All of that was a non-factor, and we saw a 49ers unit that looked so refreshed, took full advantage of the bye week, getting healthier at this time of the year. And, we see so many big injuries happening in football year in and year out, and this is a 49ers unit that is getting healthier. They got Quan Alexander back. You saw much of a difference he was making. Dee Ford out in that rotation of pass rushers. The 49ers' ability to constantly rotate all these different guys with their pass rush and also have a solid secondary, it really is remarkable, and the 49ers look like a complete team, and they look like the most dangerous team left right now.
Yeah, they sacked Kirk Cousins 6 times, all by defensive linemen. They picked him off once, but just as Lloyd Benson famously reminded Dan Quayle, he was no John F. Kennedy. Cousins, while having a great year, is no Aaron Rodgers. How does San Francisco handle Rodgers in this Packer attack this weekend?
Well, that's going to be fascinating. And, the initial inclination is to just think back what we saw November 24th when the 49ers hosted the Packers on Sunday Night Football. That game was kind of seen as like, all right, this is the first show-me test for San Francisco, and they delivered, all right, rolled the Packers by nearly 30 points, forced Aaron Rodgers into one of the worst outings of his career. But in his opening remarks this week, as soon as the matchup was set, Kyle Shanahan said, you know what? I'm going to tell my team to forget about what happened in that game, all right? Because in the NFL, he has seen so many instances where, okay, if something happens in one game, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be translating to the next. And Aaron Rodgers is the key difference maker for the Green Bay Packers. Everything runs through him. Yeah, we talk about how Green Bay now has a running game. Yeah, they have a solid defense, but still, number 12 is the guy that dictates how that team is going to be moving the ball. And that's going to be key for the 49ers defense, all right? They know what kind of Hall of Fame talent he is. I mean, he's going to be the best quarterback that they see, this year since they faced Russell Wilson, Drew Brees already. Yeah, those guys are excellent, but, Aaron Rodgers, his caliber, and yes, he is no Kirk Cousins. If he gets into a rhythm, you saw how dangerous it can get. And I want to say something else about that November game is, it just really seemed that it got away from the Packers so early, and yeah, we could have saw more from Green Bay, but it almost felt as if Aaron Rodgers kind of checked out. As soon as it went wrong in the first quarter, it was all like, okay, let's try this again later. And, since then, the Packers have looked like a completely different team. They haven't lost since then. The 49ers defense is keenly aware of that. If they can slow down Rodgers and not let him get into a rhythm, then they can establish the run and then really make Rodgers into some uncomfortable positions. The 49ers defense really has the edge in this game. However, you would not be surprised, right, if Rodgers turned into a Hall of Fame performance to get his team to the Super Bowl.
Mark, Jimmy Garoppolo's numbers weren't exactly eye-popping, but they didn't need to be. Is he a game manager this week, or will he have to be a playmaker against Green Bay?
I think what we saw against the Vikings is very indicative of how Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers have been all year long, where, we're talking about this team's ability to win games in a variety of ways. It's not all on Jimmy Garoppolo, and, the progression is to think like, oh, well, what kind of quarterback do they have here? Let's look at the quarterback matchups. Well, I look at the Tennessee Titans. We've already taken out the New England Patriots. We've already taken out the Baltimore Ravens. Ryan Tannehill has thrown for, just under 200 yards combined in both of those games. They're a team that's built through Derrick Henry. Whereas the case with the San Francisco 49ers, they have so many different ways that they can attack teams, all right? Is it going to be a Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman type game? Is it going to be a game where Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, makes a difference? Is it going to be a George Kittle game where he erupts for 150 yards, where it's not all on Garoppolo? Kyle Shanahan wants it that way. Kyle Shanahan is a master play caller. You never want to put anything all on one player. The times where Jimmy Garoppolo stepped up is when he needed to, in some third down situations against Minnesota. Yeah, he had the interception, and, the whole game manager, the whole classification, I just think that's a moot point when you're talking about the 49ers offense, because they just always seem to game plan and kind of exploit different inefficiencies. They never go into a game plan thinking like, okay, we need to see how much Garoppolo is going to be doing here. And that's not to say that he's going to be not going to be a difference maker against Green Bay, and they don't need him at all, because there are going to be times where they need him to make clutch throws. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get an attack here where it's like, okay, let's see how much we can establish the run. Garoppolo, you don't need to make too many big plays here, because this is a complete offensive attack.
Mark, you touched on it a little bit already for the first meeting this year. Any chance the 49ers are overconfident because of the way they whipped Green Bay in the regular season?
Well, Kyle Shanahan, when he was asked about that earlier this week, what would be your advice to the players thinking, if they start to overlook Green Bay and start to get overconfident and thinking that it's always going to be that easy? His response and his advice to that point is, don't be that stupid, all right? It's not like that. It's not always going to be like that. He brought up a story of how when he was the offensive coordinator in Atlanta, and a few years back when Carolina had its Super Bowl run, all right, they got trounced by the Panthers, hosted them in Atlanta 2 weeks later, and they beat them, gave them their only loss of the year. And also, I feel that the disrespect card is one of the most powerful things in sports. We see it all the time, right? We saw it with the Washington Nationals against the Houston Astros, all right? We saw it with the Clemson Tigers a few years back before they started being so dominant. We saw it with the Cleveland Cavaliers when they were down 3-1 against the Golden State Warriors, okay? The Green Bay Packers have the disrespect card on their side, and so the 49ers defense is not trying to give them any bulletin board material. So far, they're saying all the right things, all right? Not being too overconfident about what happened, okay? They realize how games can get away from a team. It's the regular season. Weird circumstances happen, but it's an entirely different game in the playoffs, and they are respecting Green Bay as a team that is up there with them, championship worthy, and absolutely no overlooking Aaron Rodgers.